Why do they look so slimy? Like, they look sticky. Hey everybody, so after recording this extremely long video, I noticed that there was an error in the audio recording. For some reason the audio sounds echoed. Just letting you know. Hey guys, so I want to be honest with you guys. I just want to start doing videos, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing them correctly. I don't know if I'm good at this. I don't know if I'm bad at this. I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. But I started taking advice from other YouTubers that I've seen online, and all of them say the same thing. They say, just start doing what you love. Just start doing it, and eventually you'll get better at it, and eventually you'll get an audience. So I decided to just start doing what I want to do. And one of the things I want to do is talk about my favorite shows on TV that I really, really love, that fill me with a sort of joy and peace, especially during these times of the pandemic. So the show that I decided to talk about is a modern version of a show that I grew up on and love, which is Star Trek. I've loved Star Trek ever since I was very young. I remember seeing it as a kid. I remember growing up seeing it, and I still see it to this day. Like right now, right next to this setup, there's a TV with Voyager on it that I'm currently watching for the 30th time or something. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a hardcore Trekkie like some. I don't have that kind of geek cred, but I do have like an intense love of the series. I think about my future, I think about my life in terms of the series and in terms of like the philosophy behind Star Trek. It's things as simple as when I'm voting for a presidential or a senate or something like that, I think about, hey, does this take me towards that Star Trek universe that I really want? Does it offer universal health care? Does it help everybody in need? Does it eliminate the need for money and scarcity and everything like that? So yeah, Star Trek has a near and dear place to my heart, and that's why I wanted to start with this. So I'm going to start with Star Trek Discovery. I am fully aware that Star Trek Discovery is polarizing to a lot of Star Trek fans. Personally, I'm on the side that I like it, but I know some don't. And I decided to start this series by talking about Star Trek Discovery. And I'm going to basically go over all the plot points and everything and discuss like details that stuck to me or that I thought of. This is the second time I'm watching the series. I already watched the entire series, seasons 1, 2, and 3. So right now all I'm doing is like watching it again and giving you guys my input. So let's start with the most basic thing. I don't like Paramount Plus and its interface. I just don't like the interface at all. I started doing this video with Paramount Plus there, and I kept trying to use the arrow keys. I tend to watch series, but I get distracted easily. You know, I have like some kind of ADD situation going on. And like I'm watching the video and I miss something, I pause and then I press back. And for some reason the arrow keys don't work on Paramount Plus like they do on Netflix or other systems that I use. When I press the arrow keys, nothing happens. So that sucks. The other thing is when you press pause, a lot of times I press pause so I can look at the details of what I'm looking at on the screen. I press pause and it goes into picture-in-picture mode, so it goes like really small with a giant logo that says Paramount Plus. I mean, if I'm pausing, it's because I either want to stop it and go do other things, or I just want to look at whatever is on the screen. And I can't look at whatever is on the screen. So that's kind of terrible. I don't really like the way that the interface works in Paramount Plus. It's an unfortunate thing, but I honestly think they could do better. Do better, Paramount. Let's get down to the show. Let's talk about the first part, the first plot point, as you will. The show opens and there's like this whole Klingon speech. There's a leader talking to the Klingons to unite the houses against the people who come to the world saying, we come in peace, or whatever. So it's like some hostility there against the Federation already. Just to put you in frame of mind, Enterprise takes place at the beginning of the birth of the Federation, or the birth of, you know, the Starfleet and everything, where, you know, they start exploring the galaxy. And the original series, the Federation is already an established thing. Maybe they still have some kind of cowboy diplomacy that they've discussed in other series, but it's established. This is somewhere between that, where you have like Starfleet it's still a thing. It's still very established, but it might not be as established as the original series. Although, by the looks of the series, it's kind of pretty well established already. They look like even more established than the original series seemed like. The first thing I noticed with this whole thing is is it me or the Klingon language is very slow? The way the Klingonese, I think I remember saying it in the original series. They say Klingonese, so this Klingonese seem like very slow. Like the way they talk like they are talking like this the entire time. Kapla. I know this is gonna be like a kind of polarizing thing, but I don't mind the Klingon new look. I mean, it's not the first time they've redesigned the Klingons. The Klingons have been redesigned multiple times before. The original series, they didn't have the ridges in the head because I don't think they had the technology or the budget to do that. And in the Next Generation, they kind of updated little by little what the Klingons looked like. By the end, like General Martok and Worf looked different than what they originally did in the Next Generation when it started. So I don't know. I don't mind the redesign. I think I understand it. Like, oh, we have access to new technology and new ways to do things. So I'm going to update this to make it look more like part of the universe and less human with something on their head. So I totally get that. One thing I didn't get is, why do they look so slimy? Like, they look sticky. They look like you would shake their hand and you would go, oh, disgusting. So, I don't know. They always look very shiny to me, especially in that first episode. I don't remember if that keeps up for the rest of the season, but holy crap, they always look wet or shiny or sticky. Like, they just rolled around in some kind of goo and then decided to talk to you. And it's kind of off-putting. Like, what I would think about is, why are you so shiny, dude? Why? So I'm not a huge fan of the shininess or stickiness of them, but I think the design was pretty cohesive and they look pretty badass. They look more warrior than original Klingons did or the ones in the Next Generation. So I kind of buy that they're more of a warrior race than others. I like the idea in the speech of humans being portrayed as duplicitous. They say, oh, we come in peace, but in actuality that's more like a prelude to war. And this is not the first time that's been discussed in like Star Trek. The way that the Federation kind of colonizes other races. They include them in the Federation, so they have to abide by Federation ideals. So that kind of has to shift their culture into something that's more acceptable in the Federation system rather than like what they consider to be acceptable. So Klingons, who are a warrior race that tends to fight and expand and grow by conquering others, they had to die that down when they joined the Federation, when they had that alliance with the Federation, and other places need to do the same thing. And the Federation doesn't allow cultural situation that they wouldn't approve of. I would get how other races might see the Federation as kind of like oppressors or like colonizers. So it's an interesting aspect to it. One final thing about the look of Klingons is I like the fact that they don't have contact lenses. One of the things I remember, and it always stands out to me every time I see this older series, like, the Next Generation, the original series, is aliens that have contact lenses tend to look cross-eyed a lot. I'm guessing it's the contact moving and making it look weird, but Jesus, that happened a lot. A classic case of this would be Wei-Yun, every from DS9. I'm glad they don't use contact lenses. Sorry, I had an interruption there. My husband came down and started talking to me. That was the first plot point. Right after that, we get introduced to two of the main cast, or at least two of the main cast for the beginning. We're introduced to Captain Philippa Giorgio, and Michael Burnham in this scene. We're in some sort of alien planet that's all desert. They're both from the ship Zhenzhou. Michael Burnham is introduced by being very Vulcan in the way she talks and the way she expresses herself. So the first thing she does is to estimate how long it'll take for the storm to reach them. And it's a very Vulcan thing, like, 3 hours, 2 minutes, 25 seconds, and whatever. And that's a very Vulcan thing. So you might immediately think that she's Vulcan, but she's actually human. But it highlights the fact that she was raised, essentially, by Vulcans. She had a Vulcan upbringing. They start the conversation by arguing about, or playful banter about if they're lost or not. Giorgio thinks they're lost. Burnham says they're not. They're there to fix a problem. So they're there to fix a situation caused by a mining accident that dried up the planet's water table. So they're there to fix that mistake and prevent that culture from dying out because they don't have access to water. During this discussion, they're talking about General Order 1, which is the Prime Directive. If you don't know what that is, it basically means that the Federation and Starfleet is not allowed to interfere in other cultures, especially cultures that are pre-warp or cultures that are not aware of interstellar life. They're not supposed to interfere. There are multiple exceptions. Like every series has at least 20-30 times that they violate the Prime Directive for some reason or another. In this case, they do it because there was a mining accident somewhere else that caused the problem. So they caused the problem, so they're fixing it, but they're trying to do it before the inhabitants of the island, of the world, become aware of their existence. Basically, they go to a well, they blast, boom, 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 water supply comes out, yay, we finished it. We saved this culture, yay. We get our first look at CGI aliens here, and honestly, I thought it was fantastic. The CGI was really good, and I think it's overall, there's a lot of good CGI in the series. Like a lot of the visuals look fucking beautiful. I can't tell if the aliens that we saw in this planet are CGI or a mix of CGI and practical effects. I'm guessing it's a mix. I'm not 100% sure, but it looks great. Like it's one of my favorite things about the series, how beautiful it looks all the time. It's after they release the water, the roles get reversed between Giorgio and Burnham. Burnham insists that they're lost, and Giorgio is like, no, I got this. And she does got it. She's a good captain. She has this cool air about her. It's like quiet confidence, the way she speaks and her kind of like knowing glances at Burnham. It's very interesting. I like the way she's portrayed by the actress. Giorgio tells Burnham to walk behind her. Burnham doesn't know what's happening. She just thinks they're lost, and she's getting worried that the storm is upon them, and if they don't get out, they're going to be stuck there for over 80 years. Giorgio tells Burnham, hey, we've been together for 7 years. You've been my number one for 7 years. I think it's time you get your own command. So it's kind of establishing their relationship. They feel like they've known each other for a long time. You know, sometimes in certain series, they're like, oh, we've known each other for years. And it doesn't seem like it. Doesn't feel that way. And this one actually does feel that way. It feels like they've known each other for a long time. The stakes are revealed at this point, like, oh, if we don't leave, we're going to be stuck here for 80 years, and neither of them seem that worried, which kind of lets me know that of their different personalities. Giorgio is not worried because she already has a plan. She has that quiet confidence that we talked about. She knows what she's going to do, and she knows how she's going to get out of the situation. Burnham, on the other hand, is very Vulcan in her calm. She's like calm and calculating. She's not exactly stoic. Like if you think about Spock, or if you think about Tuvok, or any of those classic Vulcans that are perfect in their role, they're very stoic. They're like walls. There's no way you can penetrate that stony exterior. But Burnham has that facade, but there's a lot of behind her eyes and the way she talks and the way she expresses herself that shows that there is emotion there, and maybe some of it is not that positive. After they do that walking around and they talk the entire time and we get to know them in their element, they run into their own footprints again. Burnham says, oh no, we've been walking in a circle, but at that moment, Giorgio says, oh, it's not exactly a circle, again demonstrating that quiet confidence that she has. And that moment, boom, the Shinjo busts through the clouds, which looked fantastic, and beams them up. And then we can see what happened there. They were creating the Delta, the Star Trek Delta, in the sand. Yay! Cool. The intro is that we get that symbol, and then it looks great. When the ship came in, it played the anthem of Star Trek. It's like those horns or trumpets. I don't know what they are. Awesome, and every time I hear that, I instantly get goosebumps. Doesn't matter what series I'm watching, like that music always gives me like instant joy, instant nostalgia, and it makes me smile every time. Like, it's awesome. So Another thing that I noticed is the ship. The Shenzhou, looks Starfleet. It does. But it's different. Like, if you remember the old ships, they were very circular. The ships now look more angular. They look more squared off. They still have the same dimensions, the same look of the original ships, but they look more, in my opinion, they look more menacing, more aggressive looking, more cool, I guess you could say. I know some people didn't like that. I know a lot of people hated the design of the Discovery. I didn't see it. I didn't think it looked that bad, but a lot of people did. And after 3 seasons, I got to like the way it looked, and I liked the effect of it and everything. It was cool. I like the ships. I don't complain about them. They modernized them. Again, I don't see a problem with them modernizing things of the series to make it more appealing to a general audience. I have no problem with that. Another thing is that when they beamed out, I think the effect looked pretty awesome. It kind of expresses how beaming works. So in Star Trek, when you get beamed up, you get broken into atoms or molecules or whatever, and then get reassembled wherever you beam to. I liked it because it kind of looked like they were being deconstructed in the beam, which is pretty cool. I like that. So after that, we go to the intro. It's been a long road, getting from there to here. It's been a long road, getting from there to here. It's been a long time. No, no, it's not that intro. I personally hated that intro. Did you guys like the Enterprise intro? I hated it. I hated that song. Every time. It's the only Star Trek where I immediately skip the intro. Every time I see it. Ugh, I hated it. So the intro is more classic Star Trek with, the instrumental music with some variations. Now we begin the actual episode. And it starts with a very classic Star Trek thing. It starts with a log entry. We get a log entry. Yay! We end up with the context of the episode. Using that log entry, we get a context. The Shenzhou is investigating damage to a communications array. So apparently the communications array was damaged. They're going to check up on what did it and fix it. At this point in the ship, we're introduced to the science officer, Saru. The science officer expresses worry that the relay was purposely damaged, and he's anxious about it. At this point, we learn more about Saru, and later we end up learning more about his race, the Kelpians, who have an increased sense of threat for predators, and because of this, they're always cautious. They're always worried that they're going to be attacked. Once Saru expresses his concern, Burnham takes absolutely no time to start mocking him and telling him to base his thoughts on facts rather than his feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. Saru, I mean, get over it.
The comment was figurative. I'm expressing concern.
Finish your scan so you can express facts instead.
I actually thought this interaction was kind of mean. I feel like Burnham was kind of mean. I guess it was friendly joshing, but later in the episode, I don't get the feeling that they're friends. More like friendly adversaries. But I always get the distinct impression that Burnham is a little bit mean. Here, looking at the ship and looking at everything, I started wondering, are we going to have excessive amounts of lens flares? Are we going to have 20,000 lens flare in 5 scenes? Thankfully we don't, but there are still lens flares in the show. This is coffee. This is 40 ounces of decaf coffee because I can't have caffeine. I can't have caffeine, so 40 ounces of decaf coffee. It serves no purpose other than it tastes like coffee and trick me into thinking I'm good. So at this point, we take a look at the other bridge officers. Some are easily recognizable in terms of race, but others are not. I really love the design of the Kelpians, or at least at this point, the only one we see is Saru. I think it looks fantastic. It looks very intricate in its design, but it looks plausible. It looks like it exists in this world. I also I don't think they showed it in this episode, but I love the way that they walk and the weird shoes that they use. They use not high heels, but high fronts. So that the heel kind of floats in the air. It's weird and interesting looking, and it's fantastic. And top-notch design. I can't believe this series doesn't get more accolades for its general design. Burnham reports Saru's concerns to Captain Georgiou, who somewhat dismisses the concern. Michael surmises that she believes that someone's trying to get Starfleet's attention by destroying it, trying to bring Starfleet there and get them to investigate. I think she's kind of insinuating that there's going to be an ambush of some sort there, which we find out later is kind of the case. They were brought there to create an enemy for the Klingons to attack. I think at this point we get a good look at Saru, and we get a close-up of his face. And yeah, he has contact lenses. I just spent a good 2 minutes bashing contact lenses and the way it worked in older series, but I think they know how to use new technology and contact lenses in a way that looks better, and I think it looks great. I think Saru looks fantastic. At this point, Burnham and Giorgio join the bridge again, and then discuss the situation. Giorgio reveals that Burnham agrees with Saru, and Saru's like shocked that that Burnham agrees with him. So that kind of also sets up their relationship. They were adversaries, and they constantly are at odds with each other.
Ensign Carter, agreement between my senior officers. Note the date and time.
Noted, Captain.
Giorgio is presented as a very likable person, or a very likable character and captain. I think that quiet confidence and attitude in her is excellent. I would love to work under someone like that. Someone that looks like they enjoy what they're doing and they're good at it. Saru finds something out there and he tries to determine what that is. Here's a side note. Who the hell is the guy in the robot? The robot head person? The robot head woman? Man? Non-binary person? Is it an android? Is it a robot? I don't remember anything in the original series or beyond that was a robot or an android in a ship except for Data. Is it a Breen? Is it a Breen helmet? I can't tell. Like, honestly, I can't tell, and I think Breen were only in DS9. So, who is that? I remember stopping it the first time I watched this and thought, who the hell is this thing? What is it? I need explanations. Tell me who this is. So, they see the thing. They're able to hone in on it, but a clear image can't be determined because apparently there's a scattering field. They try to figure it out. They go to one of I think it's Giorgio's room to try to get a good look at it using a telescope. Before that, Burnham and Saru are kind of fighting over a console. Like Burnham pushes Saru out of the way to work the console, which again is kind of mean, and I don't understand, or at least I find it interesting that the series is portraying Burnham as less than a super likable character. I don't remember any character in Star Trek that was presented as less than super likable. Maybe Doctors, because I remember McCoy to me wasn't super likable at the beginning, and because of the way he treated Spock, and Dr. Polanski was also kind of abrasive the way she talked to Data, but has never been the first officer. But in this case, Michael Burnham, who's the main character of the show, is not presented as the most likable person in the world, at least to me. I'm also, now that we're talking about the console, I'm also sad that they lost the LCARS interface, or I don't know, I call it LCARS, the LCARS interface. I really like that look. Like, as you can see in my video, I really like that look. And it makes me sad that it's not there anymore. Since they can't use the ship to determine what the object is, they use a telescope in the room. Immediately, Saru says that it's lying in wait.
Oh, I will. It's lurking. The scattering field it's emitting suggests intent.
And Burnham says, oh, you can't determine intent based on your feelings. It has to be, maybe it was lost. Maybe it's damaged. And Giorgio says, maybe it wants to be found. So Saru recommends that they leave it alone. Giorgio states that they don't have much choice because they can't lock onto it and they can't get a shuttle in there. Burnham says that she can go using a thruster pack. Everybody objects. So it's like, no. But she says it's the best way to do that. And they mentioned that Michael has 20 minutes to get there, look at it, and come back or she'll die. And that's very Star Trek, setting very specific arbitrary limits to things. You have exactly 20 minutes before this happens, or you have 8 minutes before this happens. When they're discussing about the flyby, Burnham says,
You do understand that being afraid of everything means you learn nothing.
Which seems like more of a general objection about Kelpians rather than Saru. So that's a little bit racist, right? Isn't it? Yeah, right? But she also makes a very good point here. How would a Kelpian make it through Starfleet? Wouldn't they have to take the psychological test that we saw Wesley take at some point in The Next Generation? And wouldn't they fail it because they wouldn't be able to make the decisions in a way that was contrary to what their emotions were telling them. Because he always seems like, no, I don't want to do. I want to get as far away from here as possible. So I don't know. I think that's something that Kelpians in Starfleet don't seem to be very compatible to me. So when they're talking about that, Giorgio says, "Fine, you're going on a flyby. Saru, go with her." Saru's like, "No." Burnham's like, "No." Giorgio warns Burnham that she's going to be cut off from communication when she does the flyby, but she agrees to do the flyby anyway. They do like this cute thing before she leaves, which is do like an in-flight announcement.
To welcome you to Flight 819 with nonstop service to the object of unknown origin. The temperature outside is brisk minus 260 degrees Celsius. We are forecasting some mild debris, but anticipate a smooth ride.
Burnham comes out of the ship in her spacesuit, looking kind of mechy. I like the design. Look at the graphics. They're beautiful. Like, on point every single time. Graphics are your thing. Star Trek, keep it up. We hear the computer voice for the first time here.
Commencing final pre-launch system checks. Life support nominal.
It instantly makes me miss, I think I'm saying her name wrong, but Majel Barrett's voice as a ship voice. I loved her voice.
Hello, computer? Is Commander Riker still on the bridge?
Negative. Riker is currently in holodeck 3.
Burnham blasts towards the object. We established that Burnham's vitals are off, and Giorgio recognizes she's just having fun, which is not very Vulcan of her to feel that fun excitement over something new. As she gets closer to the object, she loses communication with the ship. The computer seems to be doing like automatic course correction, so she's not really flying. She's just like enjoying the ride till she gets there. Once Burnham gets there, we establish that 7 minutes have elapsed, and giving her 13 minutes before her DNA unravels like noodles. That's something that Saru said. Which is weird. Burnham looks at the object, appreciates how intricate it is. It looks very pretty. It looks very sculptural and designed. And Burnham takes this point to pontificate.
I can't remember who said sculptures are crystallized spirituality.
She notes how old it looks, saying that the word to describe it is wow. So she's like in awe of this thing. She doesn't know if it actually has any practical purpose except just looking beautiful. When Burnham sets down on the object, the ship moves, or the object moves like it's extending its wings. Burnham has 9 minutes, and she gets an immediate proximity alert. She turns around, she sees this giant, menacing motherfucker, and the computer recognizes it as Klingon using iconography that he has. And we see our first batleth, and it looks pretty cool. So she gets attacked. Burnham kind of turns on her suit, her thrusters, and then he chooses that momentum to kill him with his own batleth. To be honest, I didn't love this scene, mainly because the editing isn't great. You can't really see what's happening or how she got a hold of the blade and used it to stab him. It kind of looked like it was awkward. I replayed it multiple times to see if I was missing something. No, it just didn't look right. Klingon's dead. Michael's floating away. It looks like she cracked her helmet in the attempt, even though we didn't see that happen. And she's just like unconscious. The Shinjo doesn't know what's going on at this point, and they're trying to contact Michael because she has 15 seconds left before the deadline of doom. They lock onto Burnham with 10 seconds on the clock, and then we cut. We go to the Klingons, and then the Klingons are... The timeline here doesn't make any sense because Michael's been floating to the ship seemingly for the last 5 minutes, and by this time, when we cut, we're going to the Klingons, and they already bandaged the body to look like a mummy type thing. The body is like laying... The body's like laying on a thing. It has bandages clinging on to the body. Did you get it? Clinging on to, whatever. We reveal that the object that Burnham was on was a ceremonial torch that they use as a beacon to bring others there. We also see some kind of burial practices here. We see that they wrapped it. They did this whole thing with the body where they put it in a sarcophagus. They open the guy's eyes, float him up, and put him in the end of on top of the ship. Like the ship is covered by dead bodies in sarcophagus. So sarcophagi. They yell out when he's floating away. So there's a lot of things there that are reminiscent to what older Star Treks did in terms of Klingons. Like in older Klingons considered the body like a shell, not really important. They would open the eyes of the person that died and scream in the air. Like warning, I think it was like warning that a warrior was coming. That was the idea of the yell. But in this one, they seem to be treating the body with a lot more reverence than they did before. I don't know if that's something that they used to do and then they stopped doing. After that, we get to like the aftermath of everything. We see that we cut back to the Shenzhou. Burnham is getting treated for radiation burns. The Burnham's getting treated for burns. While she's being treated, she has a flashback about her childhood. She's in this like training center or education center in Vulcan. She seems to be getting like taught by a computer, and then the computer starts asking her about Klingons and asking her about the last Klingon attack, and baby Burnham, like she's having an emotional effect of what's being told to her. And then the thing stops when she says stop, and we see like her surrogate father there, who is Sarek, Spock's father. Dun dun dun. And Sarek tells her that when emotion brings up ghosts from the past, only logic can help her. Baby Burnham kind of says that her problem is not being quick enough, but Sarek says the problem is the heart, not the tongue. And then we see baby Burnham cry. Basically, this is establishing that Burnham has kind of baggage when it comes to Klingons, and can infer that Klingons killed her parents. I know a lot of people had problems with Burnham being introduced as Spock's sister, but that, again, this is not the first time this happens. You know, secret children, secret brothers, secret sisters have been brought up before. Wakes up and immediately goes to the bridge without finishing her treatment. She ignores the protest of the doctor and goes immediately there. And they're still trying to figure out what the object is. Burnham reveals that there are Klingons out there. We need to go to Red Alert. Giorgio says that they haven't seen Klingons. Burnham asks them to check the helmet camera, but it's inaccessible. Saru points out that she was irradiated, and if she doesn't get treatment, she'll die. He also says that Burnham has a concussion.
He also has a grade 3
I
concussion.
am not delusional. This has nothing to do with a concussion.
She needs Giorgio to do this. Go to Red Alert. Giorgio looks at her, and
Red alert.
she implicitly trusts Burnham, which is important. So Burnham explains what happens over there, and I found it kind of funny that Burnham doesn't even know how she got the upper hand of the Klingon. She literally says,
I hit my thruster pack to get away. I somehow knocked him into his blade.
we don't know, and the editing doesn't show it. What the hell happened? It was a magical blade. Saru says that they should withdraw immediately because if the Klingons on there, that's dangerous. Giorgio says they can't go because they're in Federation space, and Burnham states this to target the phase cannons, the phasers, the object, almost like an order, getting a "what you doing, bitch?" from Giorgio. Saru immediately says they're not in the habit of destroying other cultures' things, but Burnham says she's not asking to shoot at it, she's trying to target at them to see if it gets their attention. And they do. The moment they target, they get scanned and a ship decloaks in front of them. Everybody on the bridge is confused about where they came from, and we established this is the first time they've seen a cloak. Like, I thought Klingons always had them, but apparently not. This section ends Giorgio telling them to send a message to Starfleet Command and tell them we've engaged the Klingons. And then it ends there. It kind of goes to black, and you're thinking, like, is this a commercial break? Am I expecting a commercial? No commercial. Okay, cool. We see the Klingon ship and the Federation ship in front of each other, the Zhenzhou and whatever the Klingon ship is. I think it was a bird of prey, but it looks bigger. And they're facing each other, and neither of them is getting a response from the other. Like, the Zhenzhou keeps trying to hail the Klingon ship, and the Klingon ship doesn't do anything back. We hear some Klingon dialogue talking about how this was meant to be. And the leader asks his group who would like to take over the torchbearer position. His brother steps in and says, I'm supposed to take over, but I don't feel it. I'm not feeling this. It's not my thing. He doesn't trust the mission as much. And then an albino Klingon comes in and volunteers. He says his name is Vok. He's the son of none, meaning that he has no house. He's immediately discarded for the position. It's like he's unworthy. But Vok insists he's not worthy by blood, but he's worthy by faith. And then he demonstrates this by setting his freaking hand on fire. He's like holding it on the fire. Ah! He doesn't react to it, but I mean, that had to hurt. But Klingons use pain sticks for rituals. I mean, they're used to pain. I don't see how this would show that much devotion. He's just getting hurt. They get hurt all the time. They like the hurt. They're like masochist aliens. The leader accepts his plea, let him be the torchbearer. And then Vulc is instructed to immediately go light the torch to summon all the Klingons to battle. We're back in the Shenzhou, they were still not able to hail the Klingons. We discovered that the ships are armored by their dead sarcophagus, so that sarcophagus that floated up and went into on the ship, they use it to decorating their ships. It's like, oh, my mother died. I mean, they don't hurt at all. It's not practical. It's more symbolic, but this is never addressed on anything, so it's completely new. Like, this is the first time I've heard of it. It's very weird practice. Sir doesn't like it at all. He's like, hell no. And pleads and asks Burnham. He pleads to Burnham to convince Giorgio to withdraw because he's afraid that they're going to attack. After this, we cut to Giorgio, who's discussing the situation with the Admiral, telling us that it is indeed the first time they see the Klingon cloaking device working. So Starfleet tries to explain away why the Klingons would attack the communication array, and they actually scold Burnham for disturbing a warrior race. Like, oh, you shouldn't have gone over there and caused trouble. Burnham takes it upon herself to butt into the conversation at this point and saying that the Klingons will want to start a battle, that it's their natural impulse to attack, and it will be the natural outcome of this interaction. The Admiral tells Giorgio to do absolutely nothing until backup arrives. Giorgio wants to establish diplomatic relations, but Burnham knows that it's gonna be a battle. Suddenly, at this point, there's a blinding light. Burnham immediately knows that it's a signal for backup and requests to leave the bridge, despite Giorgio's surprise. Giorgio's like, "What? You want to leave the bridge now when this is happening?" But Giorgio grants the request when Burnham says that it's relevant to the situation. So Burnham contacts Sarek in her quarters. She seems to have a direct line to Sarek, which is interesting. It seems like, based on this episode and what I remember from the series as a whole, it looks like Sarek likes Burnham more than he likes Spock, which would explain why Spock would never talk about his sister or foster sister, because Dad liked her more than he liked me, and that would suck. So Sarek states that she's probably contacting him because there's a new star in the sky, and she tells him that they encountered the Klingons. Sarek says something I liked. He says,
"How rare to meet one's own demons in the flesh."
Another nod to Burnham's lack of impartiality when it comes to the Klingons. She sees them as enemies, period. Burnham says that they're just in front of each other with no interaction. She tells him that he thinks the beacon is a call for reinforcements. Sarek agrees and says that it's strange for Klingons to not engage in battle the moment they saw you. Sarek identifies that there is probably a new leader, a unifier. He says that they're rare, but it happens, and a person that unifies, it will usually unify them against something. So it would be against the Federation. Sarek can immediately tell that Burnham is affected emotionally by this and warns her not to let her personal feelings color her judgment, which is something we can tell is happening. Burnham she seems to be getting more and more unhinged the more she thinks about the Klingons. Burnham asked Sarek a question about how Vulcans managed to establish diplomatic channels with the Klingons before, because Klingons are notoriously against diplomacy. Sarek doesn't really want to tell her, but he does so anyway. We don't get the explanation from Sarek. We cut to Burnham going into the bridge and telling Giorgio that they must attack the Klingon. They must hit him with everything they've got. Giorgio's like, what? What are you talking about? They are not an imminent threat. We are wildly outgunned. We're going to die if we do that. And Burnham explains that in the past, a Vulcan ship entered Klingon space and was immediately attacked and destroyed by Klingons. After that, the Vulcans made it a practice to attack any Klingon ship they encountered.
They said hello in a language the Klingons understood. Violence brought respect. Respect brought peace.
That's where the episode name comes from. He says, oh, we should give these Klingons the Vulcan Hello, which is basically attacking the Klingons immediately, so establishing a sense of respect. We've seen this before, how Klingons value honor and they value aggression. So, if I'm not mistaken, Klingons, let me see if I'm right in this, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Klingons in previous iterations, they became allies of the Federation in the Next Generation because Starfleet intervened when their outpost was being attacked by Romulans, and showing that courage in battle and that help towards Klingons made them unify, or at least understand each other and get into the bargaining table. So this is not a new thing. Burnham is right here, and the Vulcans were right. Klingons appreciate aggression and appreciate courage in the face of defeat. I don't know how it would end if it happened, but it's probably not a bad strategy. After Giorgio says no, Burnham insists, and Giorgio's like, no, it's not going to happen. I'm not shooting these people. Starfleet does not fire first. That never happens. And dismisses her. Burnham yells, we have to, and she immediately gets called to the principal's office to be scolded. So she's like, go to my ready room, so that she can get scolded officially by Philippa, Giorgio. And because Burnham's acting weird, and everybody knows that she's acting weird, she can't be impartial, and this is freaking everybody out, and she's losing grip on reality. When they're in the principal's office, the captain's ready room, Giorgio immediately chastises Burnham for challenging her. Burnham apologizes, but double downs on her view. She says, we have to attack, we have to do this, otherwise we're going to be attacked and killed. Giorgio immediately knows that she's being prejudiced against the Klingons, saying that Burnham is trying to save fictitious victims, so she's trying to like make up for past crimes that the Klingons committed. And then what is the what the fuck moment of the like, what? Burnham Vulcan death pinches Giorgio. She just goes, what? You're down, bitch. And then goes to the bridge, dismisses Saru, and starts to order the ship to prepare to attack the Klingons. Like, this is a huge WTF moment in the show. Saru immediately doubts her orders. It's like, what are you doing, girl? Like, I don't think you went to the office and convinced Giorgio and then came out by yourself to give these orders. Who would believe that? And I was like, wow, they're really doubling down on this whole thing that Burnham is not the most likable person. I like the idea of the camera angle, like the cameras go spinning around the two characters, Saru and Burnham, kind of showing that they're at odds with each other. So it's almost like a battle thing. Like you're showing the two people that are engaging in battling, spinning around them. It's very cool. And I like that Saru kind of stood his ground. He was like, no, I'm not going to follow your orders. Even Burnham threatens him with dismissing him or, insubordination. I like the idea that the camera spinning around also shows that how things are spinning out of control. Yeah. At least that's what I think. That's my interpretation. It might not be that deep, but that's what I thought about it. So the moment Burnham says fire, Giorgio walks in and tells him to
Fire! Belay that order!
Belay that order. I love that. I love the belay that order. I want to use it all the time. Like coworkers just do something and they belay that order. It's one of my favorite lines. And Giorgio's pissed. She's like pissed. Points a phaser at her and tells her to stand the fuck down or she's going to shoot her. And that's like, what? It's like a very tense moment. I really liked it. So at that moment, the beacon dies down. The light goes away. It becomes dark again. And suddenly, there are multiple warp signatures. And a whole bunch of Klingons are coming. Ships arrive. Boom, 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 boom. I also like the way that they just pop in when they drop out of warp. So they don't just they don't slide in like you've seen in previous shows. They're like, boom, they appear. Because they're going so fast where you can't even see them approach. You just, boom, they're there. I like that effect. I think it's cool. And I think in one of my favorite scenes in Picard is one where a lot of ships are just popping in. And it looks, that always gives me like a sense of, oh, this is so cool. Like when the whole fleet shows up, it's awesome. So suddenly there are a bunch of ships, a bunch of Klingon ships. I see birds of prey. There's even freighters there, which is funny. Like, oh, this freighter's gonna kick ass. Like all in front of the Shenzhou, and that's where the episode ends. We get a standoff. There's one tiny Federation ship versus a bunch of Klingon ships, and then it ends. It ends there. And obviously, it's a cliffhanger for the next episode. We're gonna talk about that next time. But I think this episode sets up the world really well. It also sets up the characters really well. I think Giorgio is an excellent captain, and I really like her. I think the Klingons are genuinely nebulous. I think that they're not really defined yet. We only know that they're trying to unify them against the Federation. That's interesting. I think Burnham is an interesting case. I think she's not presented as a likable character, per se, and her decisions are questionable at best. I don't think she's responsible for anything that's happening because she hasn't been able to do anything. So this engagement is without her doing the Vulcan Hello. So we don't know if her actions would have actually changed anything in the next episode. We'll talk about the next episode next time. But it's just interesting to note that most of her actions were stopped by higher-ups. So she hasn't really been doing much except, raging against the machine. Overall, I enjoyed the episode. I think the world building, the general ambiance of everything is good. Although it doesn't have that feel-good feeling that previous Star Treks have, where even in the war scenes you get a feel-good that these are the good guys who are overcoming awesome odds. I still really enjoyed it, and I think the new dark, gritty Star Trek is equally valid, because right now happy-go-lucky Star Trek might not work, but there's still enough of Star Trek in there to make me engaged in it. So I like it. Something that I recommend to anybody who watches these shows and watches old shows as well. Treat each show in isolation. Try not to compare it to others, because you'll always end up disappointed. So what I mean by this is, I started with The Next Generation. To me, The Next Generation is one of the best shows, Star Trek, period. So if I take the original series, if I take Voyager, if I take DS9 and compare it to each other, I'm going to be disappointed in one or the other. But no, each one has its own experience. The original series is fun and crazy and campy as hell. The Next Generation is like a thoughtful character piece where characters grow within the series and you get to love these people that you see every single day, and it's like the best. DS9 is a culturally, political, religious nightmare of a situation, and how the Federation fits in that. Enterprise is weird. Like, all those shows have like specific contexts and specific situations that you can't really compare each other. So I suggest you don't. I suggest you go with it with a fresh mind and a fresh perspective and say, I'm going to take this for what it is and see where it fits in my universe. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But don't hate it just because it's different, because every Star Trek was different. Don't say that all the Star Treks are the same, because it isn't. And I find it weird that people say they don't like this Star Trek, but they like the Orville, and the Orville has a lot of weird potty humor and weird low-bass, low-brow humor that is not Star Trek at all, but people tend to like that. It's like, I don't know, where are you coming from, dude? Like, what is your problem, really? Is it really that the series doesn't have the good ambiance, or is there something else there? Something prejudicial there that you're not kind of expressing. Anyway, tell me what you think. What do you think of this first episode? What stood out to you? Remember to be respectful in the comments. If you disagree with me or disagree with each other, that's fine. But let's talk about it in a civil way. So I plan to make more videos. I plan to use every single episode and talk about it. Hopefully they won't be massively long. This is my first time. I'll learn how to edit more later. Please subscribe. Let me know what you think. Like. Thank you. Live long and prosper.